Welcome to All In Magazine, the publication doing things different. We are an in-depth story-sharing magazine with the truth of the matter at the heart of everything, always in all ways. A no-holds-barred, fully experiential space where you can read, watch and listen to some of the most authentic humans sharing their stories, dropping wisdom and cultivating a community you always want to be part of. Are you ready to go all in?
Welcome back, All In Magazine, streaming live on multiple channels. Rich Bontrager, the Trigger. That's Sandra D. Robinson. Sandra, what are two of your favorite things in the world besides being on television? What's two of your favorite things?
Animals and having somebody cook for me.
Okay, food and entertainment, and we're going to cover them both today.
I'm amazed by people, and when I was doing some research and studying our guest today, he just amazes me. I'm so excited. I'm looking at how easy it is for him, and think of myself in the kitchen, and I'm just amazed by people that can just go in there and do what he does and create. It's artistry to me, so I think it's gorgeous.
And whereas I know how to make nachos and hamburgers on a grill. That's the extent of it. So we're going to welcome our guest here today. Paul Treyvaud is the owner of the multi-award-winning Treyvaud's restaurant. And he has quickly built a reputation in Ireland of being one of the most unconventional chefs and TV presenters with his TV shows, Cooking with Treyvaud, Treyvaud's Kitchen, and Treyvaud's Travels. I think there's a theme there, isn't there, Sandra?
Yeah.
So, Paul Treyvaud, we're going to have you come on in, join the conversation. Welcome to All In Magazine, Paul.
How are you doing, guys? Thanks very much for having me. Looking forward to this.
That's what, and again, there's the kitchen right there. So what are you whipping up today, Paul? What was your first thing you whipped up this morning in the kitchen?
Well, the first thing I whipped up now was a kind of a flat 7-Up and a bit of toast because we had a bit of a party last night. so if you ask me what did I cook last night, I could have given you about 20 different dishes. We had a big boat trip out, hence the big red face here today. We were out in Skellig Islands where Luke Skywalker was found in one of the Star Wars movies. And we were out there for the whole day on the water, and it was absolute bliss. I actually put a little video up on my Instagram and Twitter pages and all that kind of stuff. And it's actually spiritual. I'm looking up this like a haunting kind of like island and 300 dolphins. I didn't count them all, but there was about 300 jumping all around the water. And it was and there was a beer or two had on the boat as well. So it was a brilliant day, I have to admit.
That's what they call a megapod. Did you know that? When you have many dolphins, that's such a cool experience, isn't it? I've had that happen. It's just amazing.
I've never seen anything like it. I mean, they were literally jumping out of everywhere. It was unbelievable. It was absolutely like just made my day.
It is kind of otherworldly, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of getting excited. If we saw a couple of dolphins, 5 or 6 or 10, it'd be great, And next minute, we're surrounded by them. I've never seen anything like it, I have to admit.
You are a manifester, Paul. So.
Yeah, I felt like Aquaman. I put my hand into the water. Next minute, there's 300 dolphins around that I was going, Jesus, what the hell?
We've got an awesome from our live crowd there tonight streaming along. So thank you. And chime in, ask questions as we go along. But so what got you into this whole chef, restaurant, cooking? Again, you heard me say it. I can do nachos, buddy. That's as good as it gets.
Well, at least you can do something. At least you'll never starve.
It was your father. Was it your father?
Yeah,
so you
100%.
grew up actually experiencing culinary delight, right?
Yeah, I mean, so Dad would have been the original master chef here in Ireland, which back then it didn't mean winning a 2-week TV show, hosted by Gordon Ramsay. It meant you actually, you did the gig and you worked your ass off and you blood, sweat and tears. And, it was 6 days a week in the hotel or in the restaurant where you worked, and you do 1 day a week in the college. And if you had any spare time, you weren't asked. You were expected to go down to the local butcher and master his craft on your time off, or the local fishmonger and that kind of stuff. And if you didn't do it, well, then you just weren't going to make it. This is going back now. That is 88 actually now in June. So this is going back about 60 odd years ago. But his hard work paid off. He worked in some of the most famous hotels, the St. Moritz, the Bad Rutz Palace in St. Moritz in Switzerland, one of the most expensive hotels in Europe. And then he cooked for this little known boxer, a guy called Muhammad Ali. Don't know if you've ever heard of him.
No, never.
Yeah. So in 1972, Ali fought here in Ireland against Al Blue Lewis. And Dad's friend owned the hotel where Ali stayed. And he asked Dad to go up, and he was going, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And all he ate, would you believe, for the 3 days he was there, breakfast, lunch and dinner was a 20-ounce T-bone steak, rare. That was it. no carbs, no nothing. And there was a kind of artificial ski slope outside the hotel. And Ali's cardio training was 6-pound lead boots, and he used to run up and down the hill, then come back in and eat his 20-ounce T-bone steak. So Muhammad Ali signed the menu of the hotel and gave it to Dad, and said, "From the greatest to the greatest chef, Muhammad Ali." And Dad's given it to me. So that's kind of the inspiration of where everything came from. He cooked for Frank Sinatra, Princess Grace. Dad cooked for quite a lot of well-known people back in his day. And as a kid growing up, I'm seeing him in the kitchen, and I used to go into the hotel where he worked, and I'm watching this guy, and I'm just going, oh my God, like this was back in the day. You didn't order in steaks into a hotel. You ordered in a couple of cows. And, you had the butcher in the kitchen. You didn't order in fillet of fish. You ordered in bags of fish, and you did everything yourself. Like, so it was incredible. And I'm just looking at this and I'm going, that's for me. Even though my mom tried her damnedest and her hardest not to have me go into it. I wish I listened to her now, actually, now that I think of it. But she goes, don't go into hospitality. Don't go into the hotels. And well, here I am. But
what do you think she would have rather you done?
Probably a boring accountant. Sorry if there's any accountants listening, but probably one of these Monday to Friday 9 to 5 gigs that you're kind of going, so you're off the same days.
You're still doing all the hours probably that your father did, are you not? I mean, it looks like you're having a ton of fun, but it looks like you're working just as hard as you described.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what they say, if you love what you do, and job is not really a job. So, which thankfully is a good thing at the moment, because there's not too much money to be made run the restaurant at the moment. But so at least I go in and I go, well, I think I love this, but hey, here I am.
So what got you to jump into the TV, creating your own TV show? What made you move from the kitchen to camera and lights?
Well, it's funny actually, because back in 2010, so we just come out of this big world recession in 2008. And in 2010 was the first time we started seeing a bit of kind of movement, bookings coming in for Christmas. And I was going, oh, okay, we're coming out of this now. And then in the Christmas of 2010, we got snow. You need to understand how the Irish work. So we've had 3 weeks of sun here now at the moment, right? And none of us know what to do, okay? Because we think we've either used up the next 4 years of summer, or else the last 5 years where we didn't get snow, or we didn't get the sun. So now we have snow. And we're kind of going, all right. So we were getting cancellation after cancellation. And this booking came in and canceled for 2 weeks' time. And I went, but the snow is today. And they were going, I said, like, it could be 22 degrees tomorrow. This is Celsius. I don't know how you work that out in Fahrenheit. I said, like, the sun could be shining tomorrow. I mean, like, why are you canceling? No, the snow. And they said it's going to be bad, day. So all of a sudden they canceled. So I got my phone. This is now a real old phone, one that you actually flicked open. I went to the top of the Kerry Mountains. I had a few scallops, a little bit of black pudding, and a little bit of kind of local veg. And I went up to the top as high as I could in the Kerry Mountains. I was in a pair of shorts, a T-shirt, no socks. And I cooked this dish, and I called it freezing my scallops off. And when I uploaded it onto Facebook, like, I woke up the following morning and there was about 500,000 views. Now, back then, 500,000 views was 500,000 views. It was good. I was going, what the hell? So I said to myself, look, I can't stop. I don't want to be a Chesney Hawkes who was a one-hit wonder. I am the one and only. I want to come out with another video. So I said, I'm going to do stuff that's different. So I climbed up a tree, about 150 feet up in my brother-in-law's tree. I should have made a video of me climbing up the tree because it was just nuts. And my cameraman who came up with me was basically holding my phone. And I had quail, and I wanted to have a couple of quail hanging from the tree. And he goes, no, that might be a bit too much. You might offend people or scare people that. But everything I was doing was a kind of a hidden agenda. Say, look, all these TV chefs, they're all full of crap, basically. Right? They have no idea what they're talking about. They're absolutely nonsense. Popularity has superseded ability. I said, so I want to show you how to actually cook stuff. So my hidden twist on that was, forget about, local this and local that. Go back to where it all comes from. And that's why I'm cooking the bird in the tree. But my joke on them was quails can't fly. So that was, you're not going to find a quail in a tree. So that was me kind of taking the piss out of these guys. Anyway, this started getting a bit of traction, and, people started noticing. Next minute, the press are picking up on it. Yeah. And then Simon Cowell ran this it was kind of like Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent kind of thing on YouTube. And he had all these different categories, and one of them was cooking. So I went for that. Why not for the crack? I'll do it. And the team had to be green and yellow, which was perfect because that's the colors of the Kerry flag here in Ireland. So green and yellow. So I went outdoors and I was cooking this dish, and I was, having a bit of crack. And then we discover who's the judge of this. Only Jamie Oliver. So Jamie Oliver turns around and he goes, I can't pronounce this guy's name, but like you, Rich, it's Treyvaud. He said, I can't pronounce this guy's name, but I'm telling you, he's one to watch. And I didn't give a damn if I won it or came last. When Jamie Oliver endorses you, something like that, he's now following me on Instagram and Twitter, and we exchange tweets all the time. And so he turns around and he goes, "This is a guy to watch," and that changed everything, because now the Irish press went, "Jamie Oliver said this guy's a guy to watch." So now I'm put on one of the biggest Saturday night TV shows here as well.
Yeah.
And then there was a channel called Irish TV. Unfortunately, it didn't last, but it was this brilliant idea. They were going to conquer the world. One of these great ideas that just doesn't materialize. But anyway, so they were going into the States, and it was for the Irish diaspora all over the world. And this guy turned around and he says, "Look, we want to give you a TV show." And I was going, "Okay." And he goes, "But it's going to take us, 6 or 9 months to kind of come up with the show." And I went, "No problems." He says, "Is there anything you can do between now and then?" I said, "Sure, look, I'll re-edit my YouTube videos. And we'll put that in." These were filmed like with that same crappy phone that started off. There's no light, there's no nothing. But I had a point. And my point was very, very simple. That it doesn't matter the lighting, the sound, the technicals, any of that kind of stuff, the director, it's the content that's key. And I said, these guys will sit and watch this. If they like my cooking, if they like the personality, they'll sit and they'll put up with the sound being crap. They'll put up with, that some guy walked in front of the camera that shouldn't have been there. I was doing, one of the scenes was there was a load of deer in the field behind me, and I was cooking a venison dish on the boot of my car. And every car that went by was, beeping the horn, "Hey, hey," and I'm like, "Hey," and this is on TV. And they're going like, but people loved it. So then he said, "Right, you can do your own cooking show." I didn't realize at the time he meant like, as in, you can do your own cooking show. So the camera crew arrived down, and I was going, "What's the story here, lads?" And they were going, "I don't know. We were just sent down to film you in your house." Oh, Jesus. So you know what? It was brilliant because there was no rules. There was no nothing. And I remember the camera guy the director turns around to me and he goes, "You've only got one steak for this dish." And I was going, "Yeah." And he goes, "What happens if you burn it?" And I went, "Well, what happens if you forget to turn your camera on?" I said, I won't burn anything. You just make sure I'm in shot and you make sure you follow me. That's all you got to do. And the rest will take care of itself. So it started getting a lot of traction, and it started getting, really, really well. And then unfortunately, the channel it was going into the States, it was going on Comcast over in the States. And unfortunately, there was a bit of a disagreement between owners and money and all that kind of stuff. And they went belly up. And then comes in a bigger channel, Virgin Media here in Ireland. And they went, "What's the story with your content?" And I went, "Well, like, I own it." And they went, "Well, we want it." And I went, "Fantastic." So then I got my travel show, Cooking with Treyvaud and Treyvaud's Travels on Virgin Media. That got a lot of international kind of attention. And then all of a sudden it's on Prime USA in Canada. It's on a couple of different streaming platforms over in the States. And then came in the big cancellation. And that kind of knocked everything square in his pants then. So
that's a great place to take a commercial break. We're going right back. Everyone strap in for the second half of All In Magazine with Paul Treyvaud, but we're going to be back in just a moment. Welcome back to All In Magazine, streaming live. Sandra D. Robinson, my co-host with me, Rich Bontrager here, and Paul Treyvaud. We got the name right. We know who he is. Treyvaud.
Well done, Sandra D.
He sounds French, but he's Irish. So let's not confuse things.
The D doesn't matter. The D doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Hey, now, you left us off with everything being shut down, changing. But before we jump into that, tell us about how you switched from cooking to traveling. Because now you also got into travel shows, man. How cool.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. And actually, out of all the things, because again, the Irish TV guys loved the originality. It's kind of like a guerrilla style recording that we were doing, because there was no
script.
There was no script. And it was great. You didn't have to come in and hit a line with a buzzword or this one sentence that you practice all the time. It was, "Listen, I'm cooking. Just shut up and listen to me, and you'll pay attention. You'll learn how to cook the dish." And that was it. So, what did he say? Just listen. If you listen, you'll hear you'll hear how to do it. Anyway. So I had always wanted to do travel show, because there's nothing better than promoting it. I'm unfortunately, as you can tell, I don't have the physique of a professional footballer, so I don't get to put on the green jersey to represent my country, but I can by promoting the country in a travel show. So this was nuts. So we basically had 12 days, and the Irish TV guys said they wanted 9 episodes. Now anybody who's involved in TV, and there's no research, there's nothing done, right? So I have to get 9 episodes in 12 days. This is insane. So I was very lucky. I had a couple of good friends that were located in a big rugby pitch and all around Ireland in some really good places they could organize everything for me. So I said, look, I'm coming down here. I'm going to film this. I'm going to film that. And I'm going to do this and blah, blah, blah. Great. So it was insane what we did. But we pulled out 9 episodes. And one of them is a place called Jersey Island. And it's the only cable car that goes from the mainland out onto an island. And they said, look, whatever you do, just, the actual cable car, it's a bit rickety and it's a bit kind of shook. So don't be doing too much jumping around because they know what I'm like, So I said, all right, great. And they said, and can I film anything cooking in? And they went, no, it's a small cable car. You can fit 4 people. You can't cook. And I went, okay. So anyway, I'm in the middle of the cable car, shut over the doors. And you can see this on Prime. So all of a sudden, we're about 100 yards away from the mainland. And this takes maybe about 25 minutes to go across. And I turned to the cameraman and I said, right, get your cameras out. So they turn around and they say, okay, what are we doing? And I went, I'm about to cook a dish. And he said, but he said, I said, never mind what he said, you can't cook. There's no fun in that. And I said, come on. So all of a sudden I'm cooking this prawn cocktail dish on the cable car. And it was just, it was amazing. So I got to do this in 9 different locations around Ireland, promoting the country.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have to admit, it was fantastic.
Now, you did tick off the powers that be when it comes to media. You went so unscripted, all Paul. Again, we talk about being all in. You went all in, and you got shut down on TV. Can you tell us about some of that?
Yeah, so it was very simple because I was very unique in what I was doing, because it was kind of guerrilla style, because it was different. I was getting a huge amount of attention, and I was getting a massive following on all my socials, from Twitter, TikTok to you name it. And then we came into the world of COVID. Now, I know what the kind of the shutdowns and the conditions you had over in the States were similar to Ireland, but we went to the extreme. We shut down longer than anywhere else. And it was silly, stupid things, So all of a sudden, if you had a €9 meal, you could go out, you could eat. And I'm kind of going, what, does COVID know you're eating? If you stood up, you had to put on a mask. If you sat down, you could take it off, And I was going, what, does COVID know, how high you are? Like, if you stayed in a hotel, no problems. But if you didn't, I thought, how smart is this bloody virus that it knows if you're standing up, it knows if you're eating, and it knows if you're staying the night. So, of course, I started getting a bit cheesed off. And me being me, I started calling out the government. Now, go back 2-3 years ago, I didn't have the social following that I had. Roll it on to COVID, now I do. So I'm interacting with about 4 million people a month on all my socials together, which, okay, it's no Kim Kardashian, even though I do have a better ass than her. It's no Kim Kardashian, but it is serious numbers here in Ireland, right? So I'm hitting 4 million people a month, and I'm turning around saying, listen, our governments suck. So next minute, they're kind of going, actually, hang on a second. Because like in the world, you've got 20% to think to the left, and you've got 20% to think to the right, and everyone else is in the middle, and they're up for grabs to be influenced. Now, I don't have $1 billion kind of marketing tool to turn around and try and influence them. All I have is my mouth, and hopefully they like it. And they did. So I'm turning around. Our Taoiseach, our Prime Minister, Micheál Martin at the time, says, I'm going over to meet the President, Joe Biden, and give him our traditional bowl of shamrock for St. Patrick's Day. And if that guy gets on a plane and goes over to the States, I'm opening my restaurant tomorrow. Because I think we're in a global pandemic, and I can't leave 5 miles outside of my house, but he can hop on a plane and go to America. Enough of this nonsense. Absolutely enough. So all of a sudden, that started getting a lot of traction. And I'm doing loads of radio interviews. And I get called, you got to come in and say this. You got to come in and say what you put on your tweets and all that kind of stuff. The next minute, it stops. But by 3-4 weeks into it, it stops. So I'm getting the producers of the radio shows and the TV shows and the press going, we can't have you back on again. And I was going, what do you mean? It's because they can't argue with you. What do you mean? Is that not a good thing? And they went, no, we only have one client at the moment that's paying for advertising, and it's the government. And you're going completely against their narrative. Now, listen, I'm no conspiracy theorist or any of this kind of stuff, but what I was saying was opening people's eyes and their minds to turn around and go, hang on a second. Something's gone. So then roll on 2 years after the pandemic is over, and all of a sudden things are supposed to be getting better, and we're going, right, well, we're going to be in for a bumper year. And then Ireland, pretty much like the States and pretty much like a lot of other countries around, all of a sudden we're flooded with mass immigration. Yes. And I'm going, whoa, hang on a second here. We're giving away all this hotel space, all this kind of Airbnbs where people can come on holiday and stay, to these guys who will never work, never do anything. And I was turning around saying, but these guys are scammers. So I was calling every single name under the sun. Yeah, racist, fascist, far right, Nazi, call everything. Thankfully, I literally am as Irish as they get, and that kind of stuff doesn't bother me at all. I'm saying it's a fact. What I'm saying is true. So all of a sudden they're going, well, we're definitely canceling this guy. So I had another show that was I had a brilliant TV series. Yeah. Treyvaud travels to Shannon, and all of a sudden it's pulled. And I go, what do you mean? He says, because they can't put you on because you're going against the complete narrative. And we were supposed to be hopefully going to go into PBS, and all the funding went. I went, geez, I had the tourist board going, we should have been backing you. You're brilliant. To all of a sudden, no, we're not taking your calls. We're not answering your emails. And I go, why? Because I told the truth. And the crazy thing is now, roll on the clock 2 years' time, our government is coming out saying exactly what I said 2 years ago, that apparently was far right, that was apparently fascist, that was apparently all kinds of stuff. And they're saying, yeah, and they've even admitted that what's come into the country, between 80 to 90% is illegal and shouldn't be here. And I'm getting a little bit political, but I'm just kind of paint the picture as, so if you've got somebody who's, first of all, not afraid to say what's on his mind, who's not afraid to say what most people are thinking, and has no consequence of, I don't have a boss who can turn around and say, listen, hey, what the hell are you putting up on Twitter? You know, I'm going to sack you. So now all of a sudden I'm saying what most people are thinking, and now it's a problem for the government. So how do we deal with that? Pull them off the TV.
So you got censored, you got shut down, you went all in.
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no? Do you regret it?
Oh, I'd do it all again tomorrow with a heartbeat. Because
did it help so you're shut down on the shows, but are people flocking to your restaurant?
Oh, we're getting so many people from it. I'm a lot of things, but stupid isn't one of them. And if I ran down the street in Killarney where my restaurant is, if I ran down butt naked and people said, I'm not going into his restaurant, he's mad, right? But all these kind of things were affecting business because of other people's decisions and other people's policies. Yes. So when I turn around and stand up to it, people turn around and say, okay, look, he's mad, but we agree with him. So when we're in Killarney, we're going. And I have so many people that come in and say, well, we've come to Killarney to support you. It's insane the amount of people that are coming into the restaurant because of what I've said. So I wouldn't change it, because Dad always taught me a lot of things. You know, he said, the great thing about telling the truth is you never need to remember what you said. He also said, you got to stand up for what you believe in, you know, otherwise you fall at anything. And I said to myself, look, but this is what I believe. This is what I believe to be true. I've got my kids. I don't want to see them grow up in a country where they can't get a house or the rental's gone so high because of what we've done. There's a shortage in housing crisis. And it's the same in the States. It's the same.
It's very similar. Very similar.
And people are now turning around. Like what killed me most is I would have done anything to get into the States. I was really close getting into PBS. And then the funding went. I have an international distribution company there in New York that deal with my stuff. And they were saying, look, we can get you onto PBS, but obviously we need the funding behind it. And I'm going, oh, well, okay, I don't have that. So, and I had this company just before COVID hit, of a bespoke kitchen craft company. It was fantastic. And then he said, look, we got to pull the plug on this because, you know, we can't trade and we don't know where this is going to end and we don't have the money and blah, blah, blah. So if I could get into the States, I could give a big to the Irish government and go, I don't need you now, lads. I'm actually over there in the States. And that's the only way to really shut them up, is to get so big that then they can't ignore you anymore.
So what's next, Paul? Is there a new show in development? Are you going to go bigger? What are you cooking up?
Well, I have that show, the Shannon series, and it's nuts. So we were given 13 days this time. We had one extra day to make 9 episodes again. But again, that was the only instruction from the TV show. So I went, right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop off in 9 different towns. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Shannon River, one of the biggest rivers here in Ireland. And it's spectacular. It's absolutely beautiful. And there's all these little small towns and villages all around it. But you're on a kind of little chukka boat. You know, it doesn't move very fast, you know. But you're supposed to take in the scenery and have a laugh. Like, I mean, you're on the boat thinking you're flying and there's guys walking past you. But so we get into these little towns and villages. And I'm going, we're not leaving until we make a show. So I went, okay, Rand. So we get into one, and this is why I want people to see it, because it's nuts. So I arrive in at 6:00 that evening, and I turn around to the camera crew and said, let's film the breakfast scene now. And they went, okay. And I said, because we can get it done with. And I said, all right, great. So we're ahead of schedule for tomorrow. Great. So we film a breakfast scene. I'm cooking up a fry and blah, blah, blah. That night I said, well, what do? We go for a few pints because we're ahead of schedule. This is great. We're ahead. So we go for a few pints. And now I get a phone call from somebody who we're supposed to be meeting the following day going, hey, where are you? And I'm going, we're here. And they go, well, that's nowhere near where you need to be. And I went, well, this is where we are. This is where we told we were meeting you. And they went, no. I said, how far are you away? He said, about 6 hours by boat. I went, shite. I said, look, there's no point arguing with you. I said, that's gone. So then about an hour later, we turn around and the other person we're supposed to meet rings up and said, listen, we're really nervous and we don't want to do it. We're scared. I said, that's the other part of the show gone. I said, geez. So I see 3 Germans at the bar counter. And I went up to them. I said, how you doing, lads? What are you doing here? And they said, this is our 10th year coming to the Shannon and we fish. I said, you're the guys we're looking for. I want to make the show about you. I said, I'll cook you breakfast in your boat tomorrow if you do the show. And they went, fantastic. I said, I'll even clean up. Fantastic. So I'm turning around and I'm saying to myself, okay, so I've got a 6-minute slot of me doing breakfast. I'll get a 6 or 7 minute slot out of these guys. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to film a 3 or 4 minute slot explaining to people, do not believe everything you see on the camera. So I say, when you look at the first breakfast scene, you can actually see the sun is setting, not going up. So it wasn't morning time. So I wasn't cooking breakfast. I was talking full of shite. And I said, and the reason why I did it, because these guys canceled and these guys canceled. And now we've got the Germans. So I have to make about a 25-minute show. And now I'm kind of, okay, right, I've got maybe say 16, 18 minutes here. Got to do something else. So we went up to the town, filmed 2 little slots in a bar and a restaurant. Oh, this is a great town. Come here and eat here and everything, blah, blah. I'm still 5 or 6 minutes shy. So all of a sudden I find this train museum, right? This is nuts. So I go up to the museum, right? And I go, we're going to get 5 minutes of shite in here. I said, this is going to be perfect. And I said, and we get out of the town with a show. So I go in, it's closed. I went, I don't believe this. It's closed. So I go over and there's this owl lad and he's fast asleep in his car. I knock on the window. I said, you don't by any chance know who has the key for the museum? Oh, that's your man. He's off driving the bus. He says he won't be back for another few hours. We should go on, belt away. Go ahead, go on in. So I said, all right. Well, I said, can we film you saying we got permission? Great. So we hop over the wall and we're filming all this kind of crap. And I turn around and I go, that's not going to be 5 minutes. And so the cameraman and the director, they go off and they're trying to get these fancy shots, B-roll as they call them, of the train track and all this kind of crap. And he goes around a corner and I'm going, the actual train is due to come in about 5 minutes. We need to get the hell out of here. If we're seen in here, we're going to be shot. So anyway, he comes back around the corner. He's going, oh my God, come down here. So I run around the corner and it's like this airplane and old vehicle graveyard. And it's like hundreds of half a plane, the first ever ambulance that was in Ireland. I was going, what the hell? Where? I said, forget about what we film. Let's film this. So we film loads of stuff in that scene. And when we put it all together, it was just the craziest show ever of a travel show. But the point was, you'd never know this exists here in Ireland. And now you do because I've told you about it. And we got no permission, but it made one hell of a show. So I would love to get that. I would love to get funding to get that, obviously in Ireland, but I'd love to get that into the States somehow because I know the American people would just love it.
Oh yeah, I mean, we enjoy just listening to the stories, and I've watched quite a bit of your shows, and you definitely have the charisma that people look for. And it was interesting when you said earlier that it's not so much the lights, the camera, the this or that, it's the content. It's energy, it's your energy, it's your passion for what it is that you do that I think really attracts people. And when you speak the truth, that's so rare. I think it has been so rare that I love that you're doing this because hopefully you will inspire more people to speak the truth as well. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And here's Paul's website. So let's get cooking with Paul and tell us what they're going to find there.
So I actually do most of my stuff on the socials now, on the social media, because I just find it a much better way to interact with people. So you kind of got my story, my kind of the bio and the history of where I've come from and what I've done. Then I do all my links on Twitter. I'm doing a lot of stuff on TikTok now at the moment. I'm surprised I'm actually not being banned. But I stopped doing my cooking stuff, and I made this very clear on a lot of on the socials, is because a lot of my stuff was being plagiarized. And I went, I'm not going to give anybody any ideas or any hints. If somebody wants to see me on it, they're going to have to pay for me to do it. They're going to have to give me a proper show to do it. So I've gone very political. There's a bit of fun. It's a bit of crack. The odd time I'll be cooking away, doing something, and I kind of just for a bit of lighthearted entertainment and stuff. But yeah, so it's, and just every day, those numbers on socials are going. I said 4 million people a month is I'm pretty happy with those stats at the moment.
And you have a second book coming out too, right? The first one, the cover and the name really caught my eye, I must say.
The Hooker in the Lobby?
The Hooker in the Lobby.
I tell you, we need about 4 hours. We need about 4 hours for me to tell you just the name of the title as to where it came from. But it's not a boat. It's not a position on a rugby pitch. There's a real meaning to it. And I love it. What I wrote about that was a kind of an autobiography, but kind of... Yeah. A bit of humor thrown into it as well, of starting off in college and working through all the hotels and buying my restaurant and dealing with the banks and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's, people are saying, I don't know what it is, the way you wrote it, the style of how you wrote it, is that I read it in a day. I read it in 2 days. It was just so easy to read.
It's like you talking, and it ends. It actually, I mean, you have so much space to go. So I think there's another book coming out soon. There must be, because that book ends with him actually getting
Paul has a little bit more to say.
Restaurant up and going. So
that's right. Yeah. So I've actually 3/4 done my second book already, and it's about from social media to the big screens. and I'm waiting. I'll finish it when I hit the real big screens. So I have it all written as that, what I had to go through, what I dealt with, with dealing with different production companies and more so the government and the Irish media and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So hopefully if I get onto PBS in the States, that book will be finished.
Well, we're putting it out there. We're putting it out there.
Good.
Paul, final questions. In a brief statement, what would you say to someone who's getting beat up, abused, marginalized like you were through the media lens because they are speaking up, sharing their truth? What would you say to someone about going all in and standing their ground? What would you advise them?
Do you know what? I think the answer to that is to put it into context for everybody to really understand is bullying. And, you're that kid who goes to school every single day and the bully comes up, hits you a smack across the jaw and goes, give me your lunch money, right? And you turn around and you give him the lunch money all the time. And this has gone on for 2-3 years. And one day that kid wakes up and he goes, do you know what? If I give this guy the money or if I don't give this guy the money, he's going to hit me a box anyway. So do you know what? When he comes and asks me for his money, I'm going to hit him. I'm going to hit him first. And then I'm going to let him do whatever he wants to do. And it's only when you hit the bully, you realize what the coward they actually are. And it's only when you stand up to the bully, you realize that he was bullying 100 people behind you and he's going to turn around and they're all going to start standing on your shoulder. Now, all of a sudden, the bully mightn't be looking at 101, but he's definitely looking at 21 who are standing on, that's the end of the bullying. So I'd never change what I did. I always believe in standing up for what I believe in. And I'm seeing more and more people standing on my shoulder now to the point that I can see it. The government are saying what I said 2 years ago because they know what I said was right. Yeah. And I hope, this is probably cloud cuckoo land and probably dreamland, but I hope that one day when the whole thing comes full circle, someone in the world media, someone in the Irish media will turn around and go, this is the guy we need to have on the screens. This is the guy who said it from day one. We need to give this kid the chance. So that's hopefully what I hope for one day, but I'm not going to change. I'm not going to bow down and turn around and say, oh, the government were right. They did everything. Life's too short for that crap. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul, for sharing, being on All In Magazine, and don't drop the passion down at all, buddy. Keep the passion flying, man. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for being on.
Wow, Sandra, take a breath. What do you think of that?
Whew, always copied, never matched. Paul Treyvaud. It's true. It is a little sad that right now he's not doing the cooking shows because so many people copied, which flattery, right? I guess is one way you could look at being copied, but just the all-in attitude is so inspirational. I mean, his whole brand is inspirational, but he personally is so inspirational because standing up for what you believe is right. And it is interesting that after 2-3 years, all the stuff that he was being shamed for now, because they can't ignore the fact that the truth is coming to fruition, that there is trouble with the people that they let into Ireland, as we're discovering here in the States. We do have some scary things happening because there are people that maybe shouldn't be in the countries because they're illegally. And so to actually have him speak up against that and then have people 2-3 years later, the government's going, oh, well, hey, there's an issue. No, really? So I think among anything, in spite of everything, that he will cause people to question what is being fed to us, whatever country you're in. And I think that's good. That's healthy. If we question, then we can find out on our own. And I think that's what he inspires people to do, search for the truth.
By the way, hit the QR code, subscribe to All In Magazine. You get great video interviews like this that are also embedded into the magazine. There are other contributors that also add to the magazine content, and it's an incredible discovery magazine. And Kira Hennihan, who is the creator, producer, editor extraordinary, is bringing these amazing guests and people together to be an All In Magazine. We'll scan the QR code, and every month you'll get another one of these live streams, but also other great content. And, he was a chef. He was just a chef, just a guy.
Just a chef.
And then he began to open up his mouth and talk about bigger things. And great food, awesome food.
Oh, yeah.
But you never know what you may say to spark something and raise the consciousness, raise the
And
discussion
honestly,
level.
he was a chef, but he was making gourmet dishes on the side of a river on rocks. So,
Yes.
and in trees, 150 feet up in trees. So he did kind of go to the extreme, and had some unusual take on what it is that he actually did. But certainly, yes, that moving forward with no fear. And I think that's really very, very cool. Very cool.
So join us again next month. We'll be back again for another All In magazine. That's Sandra D. Robinson. I'm the Trigger Rich Bontrager. Join us again next month. And again, subscribe and find out what else is happening with All In the magazine.